A spaceship named Borealis drifts through the endless void of space, carrying miners and cryopods. The miners still have 4 years left before reaching their destination. Suddenly, an asteroid shifts its path and heads straight for the ship. It crashes into the Borealis, triggering the cryopods to eject. The ship's AI Leonard activates and wakes the miners, preparing them for the unfolding emergency. One of the passengers, Andy, wakes up as the asteroid strikes Leonard. The ship's AI tells him to stay calm and follow safety protocols. As the cryopods eject, they head toward a nearby planet while the Borealis is destroyed. Inside Andy's pod, robotic arms quickly assemble his suit, secure his helmet, and restore his oxygen. Many cryopods don't survive, destroyed either by the collision or the intense heat during the planet's atmospheric entry. Andy's pod barely survives the descent, struggling with its re-entry speed. As it nears a hill, the pod spins and redirects, avoiding a direct collision. It crash lands, but Andy survives. Though unconscious, a memory of his family jolts him awake. Nervous, he looks around and finds himself in a rocky mountain range beneath dark, stormy clouds. He tries to contact the ship, but gets no response. Suddenly, the ground trembles and Leonard urges Andy to leave the pod. Desperate, he grabs a fire extinguisher and smashes the pod's window to escape. As he climbs out, the unstable terrain flips the pod, and broken glass rips his suit. Leonard warns him about the planet's harsh environment, so Andy quickly uses a special spray to seal the tear. Leonard alerts Andy that the pod is on fire. Acting fast, Andy digs his way out, clutching his son's toy, the one thing he treasures most. Stranded on the alien planet, Andy spots the Borealis entering the atmosphere. However, the ship is already in flames and crashes, shattering completely on impact. The shockwave throws Andy several meters away, but he manages to survive. He asks Leonard where they are. Leonard explains they've ended up in an unmapped star system, far from their original destination. Spotting a distant light, Andy decides to head toward it, trying to contact anyone on the radio along the way. On his journey, he comes across the wreckage of the Borealis and finds a damaged pod when he tries to take the oxygen tank. He panics at the sight of a lifeless body inside, but gathers his courage to continue. He removes the oxygen tank, but discovers it's damaged and unusable. Frustrated, he moves on toward the light. Unbeknownst to him, the pod he left behind shows horrible signs, hinting he's not alone. Eventually, Andy reaches the light and finds another survivor, Dwayne, who is overjoyed to see him. However, Dwayne reveals his desperation, considering eating the dead bodies to survive, as he believes they might be the only two left alive. Dwayne, who worked in the communications department, explains that the crash happened because the company took a shortcut through an asteroid belt to save fuel. He plans to send a distress signal to Earth, but the signal will take 8 months to reach it, and the fastest rescue ship, the RTS, will need another 2 years to arrive. As Andy starts to lose hope, Dwayne suggests heading south to find the other half of the Borealis and set up a base camp. Dwayne encourages Andy, reminding him of his resilience and giving him a strong motivational push. Meanwhile, Andy steps back and accidentally unplugged a wire. As he turns to fix it, a creature suddenly appears and drags Dwayne away. Stunned and confused, Andy struggles to process what just happened. Despite the shock, he finishes sending the distress signal, determined to survive. Andy takes Dwayne's gun and sets off toward the other half of the ship alone. His oxygen supply runs dangerously low as he moves forward, and then, unexpectedly, a new voice comes through his radio. A survivor named Naomi contacts Andy, explaining that her legs are trapped in her pod. She sends him her location, but Leonard warns that the area is highly unstable with poor visibility. He advises Andy to take a safer route to the other half of the Borealis to refill his oxygen. Naomi pleads with Andy not to abandon her, promising she has enough oxygen for both of them. Moved by her desperation, Andy decides to help her. As Andy makes his way toward Naomi, they talk and start to learn more about each other. Hours pass, and as night falls, Andy begins to feel unusual. He thinks he sees movement in the darkness and asks Leonard to scan the area, but the AI cannot perform the task. Naomi remarks that Leonard is an outdated model chosen by the company to cut costs. An hour later, Andy keeps walking but starts noticing shadow figures darting through the darkness. Uneasy, he shares with Naomi what happened to Dwayne, wondering aloud about his fate. Soon, Andy comes across strange footprints, leading to a hole surrounded by webs. The sight sends a chill down his spine. He quickly warns Naomi, speculating that the planet might be home to alien spiders, though technically he and Naomi are the aliens, making the spiders just spiders. Feeling a growing sense of danger, Andy picks up his pace as he notices more webs scattered around. Naomi tries to distract him from his fear, asking why he took the job. Suddenly, a low growling sound snaps him back to the present. Nervously scanning his surroundings, Andy hears Leonard warn him about multiple trackers closing in, trackers that disturbingly belong to deceased crew members. As the trackers approach, Andy fires a flare gun to get a better look. The flare illuminates the scene, revealing monstrous spiders with scorpion-like tails advancing toward him. Panic-stricken, Andy turns and runs, but the uneven terrain causes him to stumble. He falls into a crack in the ground, just as the spider looms above. Its sharp legs skittering dangerously close, Andy tumbles several meters down before landing hard on a cliff edge. Though battered and shaken, he miraculously survives, clinging to life as his will to survive keeps him moving forward. The giant spider above roars in frustration, but doesn't pursue Andy down the cliff. Shaken, Andy tells Naomi about the spiders and reveals the horrifying truth. The trackers belong to crew members who were eaten by the creatures, their bodies now inside the spiders' stomachs. As he checks his suit, Andy realizes it's just as he finishes. Dwayne's voice crackles over the radio. He tells Andy and Naomi that he's fighting the giant spiders. Naomi urges Andy to help, but Andy hesitates, reasoning that Dwayne still has more oxygen. His GPS malfunctions due to the fall, so Naomi guides him toward Dwayne using the radio. Andy eventually spots Dwayne's flare and rushes to his location, only to find him under attack by a giant spider. Dwayne shouts that he has a plan, but before he can act, a spider pounces on him, hiding behind a nearby pod. Andy listens in horror as the creature devours Dwayne. As another spider begins sniffing around for him, Naomi distracts it by activating the lights of a nearby pod. Taking advantage of the distraction, Andy hides inside another pod, only to be met with the decaying body of a crew member. Panicking, Andy begs Naomi to turn off the lights in his pod. Instead, she activates all the pod's lights simultaneously. Andy questions why the spider stopped chasing him. His thoughts are interrupted by a mesmerizing sight, a swarm of purple glowing fireflies swirling around him, creating a stunning, almost magical illusion. But the beauty turns deadly as the fireflies suddenly shift to an angry red. They swarm him, slamming against his helmet and clawing at his suit. Trying to break through, Andy sprints away from the swarm, narrowly escaping their aggressive assault. Naomi speculates that the spiders might fear the fireflies, which could explain why they stopped chasing him earlier. Memories of his family flash before his eyes, filling him with despair. Completely engulfed, Andy frantically calls Leonard for help, describing the foul and grotesque interior of the creature. Panicking, Andy tells Leonard he's having a heart attack. Acting quickly, Leonard activates the defibrillator built into Andy's suit. The electric shock not only saves Andy, but also causes the creature to thrash violently, ultimately spitting him out. Andy scrambles to his feet, but the monster isn't far behind. In his panic, he stumbles into a cave-like structure, glowing with the light of fireflies. The creatures swarm him aggressively once more, forcing him to push through to the other side of the cave. As soon as he exits, the fireflies stop pursuing him, leaving him drained and with only a small amount of oxygen left in his suit. Instead of heading toward the remaining part of the Borealis, Andy decides to reach Naomi just as his oxygen runs out. He arrives at her pod, and she quickly connects him to her supply, saving his life. Andy tries to free Naomi's trapped leg, but isn't strong enough to lift the debris. Thinking quickly, he uses her safety tools to fashion a lever, eventually freeing her leg. Naomi confirms that it isn't broken, and as they leave the pod, Andy wraps a piece of metal around her leg as a makeshift splint, stabilizing it so she can walk with less difficulty. After gathering supplies from Naomi's pod, she thanks Andy for saving her. Before they can head to safety, a horde of spiders suddenly surrounds them, forcing them to flee. Naomi's advanced AI, Amy, injects her with morphine to help her endure the pain in her injured leg. As they run, they trip and fall, and a massive spider looms over them, ready to attack. Thinking quickly, Naomi fires her flare gun, drawing the spider's attention toward the bright light. Taking advantage of the distraction, Andy and Naomi sprint to the remaining part of the Borealis and manage to board it. However, as Naomi struggles with the malfunctioning control system, the spiders close in. With repeated attempts, she finally shuts the doors just in time. One spider gets caught and is gruesomely sliced in half by the closing mechanism. The creatures begin banging on the door, forcing Andy and Naomi to retreat deeper into the ship. The emergency lights flicker, signaling that the backup generator is still functional. Naomi moves through the ship with confidence, familiar with its layout, while Andy, who has only been aboard twice and spent most of his time in cryo-sleep, struggles to keep up. They eventually locate a deck with a livable environment and enough supplies to sustain them until a rescue ship arrives. As they try to open the deck, they notice a blood trail leading further inside. Following it cautiously, they discover that a spider has managed to infiltrate the Borealis. Hiding quietly, they watch as the spider lays an egg, covering it with cobwebs and encasing a dead body within the sticky threads. Andy feels nauseated by the scene, fighting the urge to vomit. The spider seems unaware of their presence and eventually leaves. As they start to move, another spider suddenly ambushes them from behind. Panicking, Andy locks them in a room, thinking they are safe, but Naomi quickly realizes they've trapped themselves in an airlock. Realizing his mistake, Andy desperately bangs on the door with a metal bar, but it's no use. Feeling hopeless, they both remove their helmets and begin to talk. Andy shows Naomi a recorded message of his wife and son. With a heavy heart, he reveals that they died in a car crash while returning home from his birthday celebration. He confesses the guilt that has haunted him ever since, admitting that he believes he should have been the one to die that day. Naomi tells Andy that saving her proves his life still has meaning. She admits she had lost faith in people, but his actions have restored her hope. As Naomi hugs him, she notices a cluster of fireflies clinging to his suit. Suddenly, the relentless spider breaks through the lock. Thinking quickly, Naomi grabs the fireflies and throws them at the creature. The spider recoils instantly, giving the duo a chance to escape. They sprint away but nearly fall into the cargo bay. The spider charges at them, and all three tumble into the bay. As they scramble to their feet, the spider begins chasing them again, more aggressive than ever. Andy throws Naomi's sealant spray at the spider. It bites into the can, which explodes momentarily, stunning it. Taking advantage of the distraction, Andy and Naomi make a run for it. Andy suggests using the mining drill to kill the spider once and for all. Naomi creates a diversion, running and shouting to draw the spider's attention, while Andy searches for a way to trap it. He spots a pod in an elevated area and comes up with a plan to crush the spider under it. Andy asks Naomi to lure the spider toward the pod while he searches for a working one. Leonard informs him that the only functional pod is 2 levels above their current position. Determined, Andy climbs toward the pod as the spider relentlessly chases Naomi. To help Naomi, Andy turns off all the lights, knowing the spider relies on them to hunt in the darkness. Naomi escapes at sight and finds emergency lights. She straps them on to act as a lure, drawing the spider's attention toward her. Meanwhile, Andy works frantically to eject the pod manually. Leonard informs him that the power has been redirected to prioritize Naomi's safety and that restoring it will take at least 15 minutes. Unwilling to wait, Andy decides to override the system and jumpstart the pod himself. With Naomi glowing like a beacon, the spider is successfully drawn toward Andy's position. Andy connects his suit to the pod, charging it manually. Leonard warns that the process will short-circuit his AI system, effectively ending Leonard's existence. He also cautions that Andy might not survive the power surge, but Andy proceeds anyway, fully aware of the risks. Despite the risks, Leonard expresses his willingness to sacrifice himself for Andy. As the creature moves closer to the pod, Andy recalls the car accident that claimed his family's lives and ejects the pod directly onto the spider. The impact crushes the creature, but knocks Andy unconscious. Naomi rushes to Andy, tears streaming down her face, believing he is dead. Moments later, Andy stirs and wakes up. Naomi hugs him tightly, overcome with relief. The two share a quiet moment, watching the sunrise on the alien planet. Despite the danger and hardships, they find themselves captivated by the planet's strange beauty. To their surprise, Leonard reactivates and explains that it has undergone an unexpected upgrade, ensuring it can continue assisting them in their survival. Andy smiles in relief as Leonard plays a beautiful song. Holding hands, Andy and Naomi look toward an uncertain future. What started as a routine cryosleep voyage became a harrowing fight for survival. Now they face nearly 2 years of waiting for a rescue ship, assuming their distress signal even reached Earth. But if it did, another question looms. Will the company, notorious for cutting corners to save costs, send help to a distant, uncharted planet for just 2 survivors